I want to let the person know who invented the term "Make America Great." What you meant was take America back to a time when it was great for you, but it was a nightmare for us. We marched then, we sang then, we held up signs, and we even came here like we did today, so we could all be on one accord, so we could all be unified. So don't ask yourself where the NFAC came from. The NFAC was born out of all those groups of people that understand that we know why you protest. That's your right. But we also have a right to respond to people shooting us in the back, killing our kids, shooting down our women, disproportionately putting us in prison, using physical force against us. So while we support everything that we've seen today, and while all of the speeches were heartfelt, we want to let y'all know that the NFAC is your new Black Panthers. The NFAC, right here. Black Power? One more time for everybody that has died at the hands of law enforcement or died unjustly and hasn't gotten justice yet. For all the families that's out here and for somebody that knows it could be you next. Black Power? Black Power! Black Power! Make some ancestral noise out here, DC.
Hello, this is Stephen Oduntan, staff writer for LA Focus newspaper. We have a special guest today, Grandmaster Jay. For those of you who don't know, he made headlines on July 4th when they marched to Stone Mountain, challenging white nationalists to either come outside and fight or join them demonstrating against the government. Grandmaster Jay, welcome to the show.
Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that you took the time out to talk to me, along with our organization, since mainstream media has been having a hard time telling the story. And I wanted to correct something when you opened up with the intro, which I thought was great, is that we did go to Stone Mountain in Georgia on July 4th, but it wasn't to challenge white nationalists and then tell them to join us. We don't want to join them at all. We went in response to a national threat that was made against Black people by the Ku Klux Klan, that on July 4th, they would begin killing Black people at 8 o'clock. So we went to confront that threat because we knew that that is where they gathered every July 4th. Yet when we went there, they were not there. So we went ahead and said what we had to say and we left. We didn't ask them to join us. That's a story that's been reported falsely in the media. We didn't go there to protest the monument. We didn't care about that. That was a tactical engagement. That was an armed Black militia that came to meet a threat.
It's interesting you say that, and I'm glad you corrected us on that, because this has been the narrative mainstream media has put out there, and that's why it's so important that we have you on this show to correct these narratives that have been put out there.
Absolutely. And the reason for that is because, again, this is something they've never seen before, at least not in the last 60 years. Organized, armed, all Black folks, ready to stand their ground for their people, to answer a threat. It was not about the Confederate monument. We know for a fact that that is the secondary birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. We knew for a fact that that is where they gathered on July 4th. So we wanted to make it a whole lot easier for them to find some Black people to shoot on the 4th of July rather than to go out and shoot innocent men, women, and children.
Interesting. Now the name, I love it, I must say, Not Fucking Around Coalition. How did you come up with that name? And are you trying to make a distinction from other Black so-called militant groups?
Absolutely not. This is a reflection of the attitude of most Black Americans today, if not Black folks around the globe. We're not fucking around with you no more. We're not fucking around with your excuses. We're not fucking around with your broken judicial system. We're not fucking around with waiting on the process and another grand jury. We're not fucking around anymore. We're tired of that. That didn't work. The only thing we're showing you is that we're not buying into the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The name itself comes from a movie starring Ben Affleck called The Town, which was about an elite group of bank robbers that the police could never catch. Even though they lived in the same city, in the same neighborhood, they made a career out of doing this. And there's a scene where they pulled off this master heist and the head hero walks in and he looks at everything and he says, look here, guys, these guys are good. This is the not fucking around crew. So either we catch these guys or the not fucking around is gonna go both ways. That's where the name came from. But this is a reflection of the attitude of melanated people worldwide.
Powerful statement, powerful statement. Now, since obviously you made headlines, the group made headlines on the 4th of July, but since then, what has happened? Because it seems like the cameras have gone away now. What have you guys been up to since then?
Cameras have not gone away. It's interesting that anybody out there who's watching, and I'm so glad you and I are having this dialogue, it's a matter of progression. When we went to Stone Mountain, not only did we make Black history, we made history, period. Mainstream media could find no reason to report images of Black people arming themselves in a militia that they had never heard of, so they just were quiet. Unfortunately, that worked against them because we continued to do our work, and our next goal was to focus on the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville, Kentucky, which appeared to be getting no traction, no media attention after the George Floyd tragedy, and it appeared that there was not going to be any type of judicial action taken against the officers that killed this woman in her home. So what I decided to do was take the militia into Louisville to emphasize the fact that we wanted transparency in the case, that we wanted the folks that have been protesting all along to have something other than signs and rainbows to impress upon the folks down there that if you don't give us an answer soon, you're going to have bigger troubles than just folks outside burning buildings. So we actually went into Louisville, and this has all been reported in the media. You can Google it yourself. I actually met with the state attorney general, the mayor, the police chief, and everyone else involved. They gave me the transparency that was requested. They read me into the case so I could see exactly what was going on and how long it would take before we would have a resolution in the Breonna Taylor case. And anyone who's been following that case knows that ever since we went in on July 25th, there's been nothing but transparency with that case. Every time there's a step made, they're letting you know now, whereas before, it was nothing but silence. Bringing in the militia was to emphasize our point. We brought the militia in last. We talked to them first, and they were very forthcoming in the face of a Black militia. 3,500 of us marched in. There's video if you can find it. But the only thing that the mass media wanted to talk about is what happened before we did that. There was it was very hot that day. One of the people passed out and dropped their weapon. The weapon discharged into the cement. People were hit by cement pieces, and the media wanted to blow that up and said, oh, 3 people got shot. So now what happened? 2 of those people actually rejoined us, and they put on a Band-Aid from our own medics, and they went back out there with us. But the media was quick to report that there had been a shooting. They totally ignored the rest of the story, that we went into Louisville, and not only did we get results, 25 minutes after we were done, the state attorney general came out again and emphasized, yes, we met with Grandmaster Jay, we met with the NFAC. It was a very productive meeting, and we hope to have some resolution in the 4 weeks that we allotted them before we would come back. Since that time, we have announced our return to Louisville, which will be this coming Saturday, September the 5th, the same day as the Kentucky Derby, which is what we targeted, because we figured that we're not going to burn down their city, we're going to burn down their wallets by shutting down the Kentucky Derby. And if you've been paying attention, the governor has come out since then publicly and said that he would have hoped that they had a resolution on Breonna Taylor before the Kentucky Derby. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Doesn't look like we're going to change our minds. So they've now removed spectators from the Kentucky Derby. And for the first time in 106 years, that race will be ran with no spectators, because outside of Churchill Downs will be the NFAC. And nobody wanted to try to get through that many Black militia to try to attend the race. So we've been in and out of the news. And most importantly, this past weekend on the March on Washington anniversary, the NFAC was there. The NFAC there came in unarmed because you cannot open carry in Washington, D.C., but we came in physically in force in our coalition along with other members, other agencies. And we did, of course, have a very noticeable presence there. And we've gotten nothing but good feedback from that. So we've been busy.
Yeah. So would you consider these accomplishments, some of these recent milestones?
They're not only accomplishments, they're history making. First of all, there has never existed a militia of the size and the impact that the NFAC has had, including what we did in Louisville, including what we did at Stone Mountain. As far as the impact is concerned, our coalition is international. We're not just joined here in the United States. There are several entities globally that publicly we've announced our alignment with. My man Kitty Siba from the French Pan-African Resistance. Additionally, all the other elements in the United States I won't name, but some of the other international affiliations with the EFF, the ANU, and a few other folks, some folks in South America, some folks in the UK, of course, Forever Family. The Zinga Garvey movement in the UK. We are an international coalition right now. So yes, they've been very significant. They've also been very history making. But at the end of the day, the Western media finds this to be a threat. They say that these things terrify them. They say these things must have some very sinister function, when the entire purpose of the NFAC and this coalition is to protect the Black community, self-police the Black community, and make Black folks aware of their responsibilities as gun owners and their rights as responsible gun owners in the face of continued police brutality and elevated racism in the country we live in right now.
Another thing the media does, especially conservative media news outlets, they often like to cite places like Chicago where there's a lot of gun violence and gangs and whatnot. And they were like, where's these Black militia then? Why aren't they policing these neighborhoods? How do you respond to those kind of criticisms?
I don't have to respond to those because people who make ignorant statements like that don't know the law. If you understand the law in every state, open carrying of a weapon is different. Places where people have seen the NFAC, if you notice, we always function within the scope of the law. If you want us to come to your city and you want the armed in NFAC, it's not going to happen. Chicago is a prime example. You cannot open carry a weapon anywhere in Chicago, in Illinois, so we cannot march into Chicago. However, on the other hand, like what we did in DC, there can be show of force where we come in physically and actually come in and we talk with folks and we try to mediate differences and work out peace treaties between warring gangs, things like that we've done. We are aligned with the California Black Riders, the Dark Riders, who actually negotiate gang truces, not only out on the streets, but also in a lot of the prisons and so forth. So we have different modes of being engaged. The problem is most people think that a militia is supposed to come in and just start shooting away, and that's how you fix things. That is not the purpose of a militia. Most people who make statements like, why don't you come here and why don't you come there? Here's what we say to them. What are you doing? Why don't you do it? You can pick up a weapon like we can pick up a weapon. You can organize yourselves like we organize ourselves. Study the laws in your state and then adjust accordingly, because we're here to back you up. We're not here to save the day. This is not Batman with the spotlight in the sky. And a lot of those folks say that because they don't want to admit that they've done nothing.
Interesting. I want to ask you a few things about Donald Trump, recent events going on with Portland and whatnot. But before I do, has your numbers increased since you've made headlines from the Stone Mountain incident?
I think that we need to take a step back before we even go any further than that. And that's the fact that most folks don't remember that the first appearance of the NFAC was not in Stone Mountain. It was actually in the Ahmaud Arbery case down in Brunswick, Georgia. If you remember, we showed up and we actually went to the neighborhood where the McMichaels lived, and the police came and saw these legally armed citizens, and they wouldn't even engage us. They wouldn't even come on the block because they didn't know what they were looking at. Our numbers were small then. After Brunswick, our numbers exploded exponentially. And then by the time we went into, because when we went into Stone Mountain, I brought in 1,500 troops, but when I went into Louisville, we brought in 3,500. And that's just a small piece of who we are.
Okay. Now, Donald Trump, do you think he's stoking a race war? And if he is, are you prepared?
You have to first understand my relationship with Donald Trump, which is something that's been floated around in the media. In the 2016 presidential cycle, I ran as an independent against all of the other folks that were running at the time. And Donald Trump was one of the people that I identified early in the cycle. We had a very racist campaign platform. I even went to one of his rallies so I could see it for myself when they were throwing people out. Remember the get them out of here type situation. And I observed this man and I attempted to challenge him in a debate on race, but he avoided me. Then he became president, and everything that I feared has come to fruition. So people who want to know, how can you go from being a presidential candidate to being a Black revolutionary? Donald Trump is the reason why. He has caused the racial environment in the racial conditions, the racial climate in the United States to deteriorate to the point where we are on the brink of some type of, not a civil war, just war in general. You see, there's nothing civil about a race war because of the simple fact that when you stoke ignorance and then combine that with a sense of white superiority and then feed that with white privilege and then turn a blind eye on it from the scales of justice, what you're asking for is a war that you really don't want. Militias are not here to fight wars like that. If you study the Constitution of the United States, the purpose of a militia is to reinforce the Army, Navy, Marines, and whoever else they have in the event that they become overwhelmed in a national issue. And then we're supposed to step up. I say that to say this: if there was no Black militia, then nobody would care about how many militias they were, because they would be backup for the National Guard or anything else. But in a climate where racial relations are so bad, think about it. You're going to call up the Black militia to reinforce who to do what. That's not going to work, because they're going to take the sides of their own people. Are we on the verge of that? I wouldn't think so. I think there's a lot of talking going on right now. But if you look at events in the last 3 to 4 months, there have been several times where white supremacists, white militia, and all types of white folks have been talking about, we're going to get together and do this. We're going to get together and do that. They do a good job at selling the wolf tickets, but look at what happened in Stone Mountain a few weeks ago. It was a comedy show. They couldn't get more than 30, I think it was like 18 showed up, and they were fighting each other. Look at what happened at Stone Mountain. Nobody showed up. Everywhere where they claim that we're ready for a race war, they don't have the numbers yet. They're depending on their own people to step up and do something that they really don't have the heart for. So no, I don't believe that a race war is imminent, because there's no opposition that's organized enough that we've seen that would be in opposition to us. And we're not planning on a war, because I told you what our mission is before: protect our race. Now, should our race be attacked, then it becomes a matter of self-defense. And that's a totally different conversation.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on what's going on in Portland and with the 17-year-old shooter that shot someone up in, is it Kenosha, or what's the name of that place again?
The place is Kenosha, Wisconsin. And again, this is again a sad reflection on the United States, because when you really break this down, you and I can talk about this a little later in our discussion, but the media is complicit in the misrepresentation of how the terminology they use to try to stoke people's emotions, as if they're trying to drive not just their ratings, but drive us to a place that we don't really want to be. Here are the facts. The facts are that a child, a 17-year-old child, this little white boy, who was a high school dropout, who had a lengthy criminal record, if you go and do your research, was given a weapon by his family. This person was not even legally able to possess an AR-15, was given this weapon, and then his mother drove him from another state, Illinois, to the state of Wisconsin, and then put him out there so that he could, quote unquote, help with the situation. This is a child. He gets out there and he doesn't know how to handle the situation. He gets aggressed not by protesters. There is a difference between, protesters and rioters. Protesters normally happen in the daytime. They're organized, they have a purpose, they have a message, and then they're done. Notice at night it becomes rioting. That's when destruction happens. That's when your assaults happen. That's when people are more concerned with violence. So they try to tell you that, oh, they were protesters, as if there were people walking down the street with a sign and this guy just rode up and shot him. That is a misrepresentation by the media. On top of that, calling them Black Lives Matter protesters implies that they were black people when this was nothing more than white people shooting white people. I know some people don't want to hear that, but I'm just here to tell you the truth. You got a white kid that went up there, got into it with some other white kids, and then he ends up killing two of them and wounding another. And the first thing you want to do is label it as white militia attacks Black Lives Matter. That's how the media framed it. That's not what happened. This is a very sad case of a child that's been programmed with white superiority racism who acted on it, and look who he ended up killing, some of his own kind. Now that young man has the rest of his life to sit and think about double murder and attempted murder with a weapon that he never should have had, given a ride by his mom to a place he never should have been. It's a sad indictment on the racial climate of America.
Not only that, and also he's being held as a hero by the president and many other people in the conservative circles.
I haven't heard anyone praise this young man as a hero.
Well,
I haven't heard anyone say and let us be clear. There's no such thing as conservative. Let's be honest. It's racist. What are you conserving? Oh, we want to keep the way things used to be. Oh, you want to keep Jim Crow. Oh, you want to keep Reconstruction. Oh, you want to keep the black codes. Oh, you want to keep all those things that put you in a superior position and treated us as lesser than citizens? No, you're a racist. So anyone who has said that this young man is a hero, you're a racist. Anyone that said that he was out there as a militia member because you want to see it that way, you're a racist. Notice they didn't start using the term white militia until the black militia showed up. So please, systemic racism, the bias in racism that shows up in the media and these reports, I don't want to hear that because I'm deaf to that.
Yeah, what I meant to say is they're reluctant to condemn him, not necessarily holding him as a hero, because the president hasn't even condemned him.
Well, they're not going to condemn him, Steve. They're not going to. Here's why they're not going to condemn him. They're not going to condemn him because they never condemn white people who commit acts of violence. They always want to talk about black on black crime, but they ignore the fact that 87% of white folks are killed by white folks, that every demographic has a crime rate. You kill who you're around. The question is, what causes those particular things to manifest themselves? Is it because you're genetically crazy, or is it because you've been subjected to poverty and oppression and frustration and those things, so you eventually have to resort to animalistic ways because you're not afforded the opportunity to live your life as an equal human being? So anytime one of these white kids goes off and shoots up a school, shoots up a mall, shoots up the street, goes and shoots up protesters, they always want to act like, well, he's just the problem. He's a lone wolf. He's a troubled child. But when one of us do that, it's look at what black people are doing. So again, you're looking at an argument through rose-colored glasses that we see through. We don't play that.
Absolutely. Now, I must have to ask you this question. Like, for instance, from Marcus Garvey to the Black Panthers, the government labeled them as terrorist organizations. With you coming out now with the Not Fucking Around coalition, are you concerned that what the government might try and target you as some type of domestic terrorist organization or whatnot?
The United States government can target us as whatever they want, but we deal in truth and facts. We have gone out of our way to make sure that we don't satisfy the definition of a terrorist group. That is why the NFAC has a 0 record of arrests, a 0 record of any shots being fired or shooting anyone, a 0 record of property damage, a 0 record of making reckless statements that could be construed as terrorist threats. The core of the NFAC is highly intelligent, and we're students of history. We're very much aware of what they did to the Panthers and every other group that stood up. Of course, they're going to call us terrorists because who's being terrorized? Them. Why? Because they've terrorized everyone else for the last 400 years. So, of course, they would want to find a reason to look negatively upon the response. We are the response. We are not an offensive unit. We haven't threatened anyone. We haven't committed an act of terror. We haven't gone anywhere and said what we're going to do. We simply said we're here to defend our people in the face of continued human rights violations and police brutality. So the United States government can think whatever they want, but under their own laws, we don't satisfy the definition of a terrorist group. And that is why the Southern Poverty Law Center has not categorized us as a terrorist group.
Yes, that's good, because I actually looked into that as well, and I noticed they haven't yet. You're right on that. Do you have any chapters in other cities? I'm in Los Angeles. Are there any chapters in other parts of the city? Other cities?
We have a chapter in California. We're organized by state. Okay. So there is a California chapter. As a matter of fact, when we did the march on Stone Mountain. There was a simultaneous march in Phoenix at the same time. And those were the folks from California and all of the states out there in Nevada, you know, in Arizona, Washington State, the whole West Coast. That happened in Phoenix, but that is headquartered in Los Angeles.
Okay. So, and what about the cities that don't have that open and armed carry? What impact can those people that join in those cities have in terms of your?
California is a prime example, as I just said before. All of the folks that wanted to join the NFAC that came out of California, you cannot carry in California because of what the Panthers did back at the State House. And so, of course, the laws were changed and you're denied your Second Amendment rights all over the place. What normally happens is those folks that still want to be able to open carry and participate with us, they are actually brought out and they travel to other events that we have, for instance, what we're doing in Louisville. They will be there for that. But within the state itself, it's simply a matter of there are other things that we're involved in. We're not just a militia that marches around with guns, so to speak. We're actually involved in community projects where, if you remember the 10-step program that the Black Panthers had in place to improve their neighborhoods, everything from reading, writing, to feeding the kids, to, you know, providing community programs, big brother, big sister. We're involved in all of those things. Folks who want to get involved, but know that it's not just about being able to police your community. There are other ways for you to get involved. We have folks in the NFAC who can't handle a weapon. They're felons. We cannot get their rights restored. There's still a job for them. We have folks that are physically disabled. Whether it be because of service in the war or something, there's a place for them also. We have places for everyone to do their part in the NFAC, and anyone who's in a state where you cannot open carry. There are other things you can do to educate yourself on firearms, educate yourself on your rights themselves, educate on police watch, educate yourselves on some of the things that are ailing our neighborhoods. We've got a lot of problems internally which have nothing to do with weapons. That they can be a part of, whether it's actually in-home schooling, real estate value, things of that nature, learning finances, the whole 9 yards. Matter of fact, in some instances, we've actually gotten to some things where we have what we call mama mentoring programs, where we've got women who are sitting with younger mothers and trying to really give them some of the keys, things that they might have missed before they were thrust into motherhood. We've got all types of programs going on. So there are multiple things that you can do outside of actually standing the post with us with the weapon.
Absolutely. Well, one last question. What's next for the Not Fucking Around Coalition?
The NFAC, once we get past this situation in Louisville, which we hope will have a positive resolution, we heard yesterday that the FBI did return the ballistics report that we've been waiting on to get to the Attorney General so he can wrap up what he needs to wrap up, and we can finally find out whether or not anyone is going to be walked away in handcuffs or not. But after that is over, the next thing is there are two things that are going to happen. One of those is the recruitment tour. And the recruitment tour is a tour that I will be taking around the country to sanction the chapters that have sprung up around the country and put everybody on the same sheet of music and then swear them in. The next thing after that, which is probably the most ambitious thing that most folks have heard in a long time, is the Million 2A formation. 1 million guns legally in one place, all Blacks at one time, as a show of unity and as an expression to satisfy the definition of the basis of a Declaration of Liberation before the UN and the World Council and the World Courts that will grant us citizenship of a virtual country so that we can begin to demand such things as reparations. Let me clear this up. You cannot pay reparations to a color. So you can stop saying we want reparations. They're never going to pay that to a color. Reparations are paid to a country. Restitution is paid to a country. So before we can get anything for all of our troubles for 400 years of enslavement, we must first declare ourselves an independent nation, even if it's a nation within the nation. I intend to file those papers and present that case to the World Court, and if necessary, argue it before the UN. In the meantime, the organization of the Million Guns March demonstrates a population that is unified, that is capable of defending the virtual nation. That's our next goal.
Well, since you brought that, can I just ask you again? So, are you in any dialogue with Black Lives Matter movement and whatnot, by any chance?
Not at all. We don't stand with Black Lives Matter. While we support the sentiment, of Black Lives Mattering, and we always have. I know I have for quite a few years. The Black Lives Matter organization stands apart from us, and it stands apart from us for a very distinct reason. We don't support organizations that have a demonstrated track record against straight heterosexual Black males. That's why we don't support them and we don't stand with them. Now that their movement's been co-opted, it appears to have been co-opted by everybody except Black people, we really don't stand with them.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? I think I've asked all my questions. Just to clear anything up.
The only thing I wanted to add is that and you're my brother,
yes,
you know, and a lot of people will say that, well, you don't know him. I don't have to know him for him to be my brother. I don't have to love him because I know him. I love him because he's one of my own kind. And I think that if we all just start loving each other in spite of our differences, then maybe then we can get down the road without all of this turmoil that we have. If you'd like to if you're interested in joining the NFAC or would like to see if you qualify, you can shoot an email to us at info@blacknfac.com. Let me say it again. That's info@blacknfac.com. Please be so clear. Let us know why you want to join. You must be 21 years of age or older. You must be able to possess a CCP, carry, conceal, or already have one. You must already possess weapons, and we'll talk about that. And on top of that, I hate to say it, you have to be Black. We're doing this for a reason. We're not racist. Is that we have to learn to get along and work with each other before we can work along with anyone else. If it goes right, we get all the credit. If it goes wrong, we got nobody to blame but ourselves. So I wanted to put that out there and let you know that. And I also want to thank you and everyone at LA Focus for even taking the time out to talk to the most loved and hated group on the face of the earth right now. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you saw, like, subscribe, and share. And also comment below so that we can know what you're thinking. Also, don't forget to click on the bell icon so you can receive our notifications. Peace out.